Wells in 15 minutes, so we got 6 stats. We're going to fly through these pretty quickly. But first, we got to start with the playoff Joe Flacco numbers. We've talked about him all week, but just to hammer home and emphasize how impressive he's been in his playoff career. He's 10-5 overall in the playoffs. He has 5 wins in the wild card round. That's the most ever. He's 6-0 in his first playoff game. He's never gone one and done in the playoffs. He has 7 road playoff wins, tied with Tom Brady for the most ever. If he beats Houston this week, it will be Mr. Flacco at number 1. Tom Brady moves to number 2. And here's my favorite Joe Flacco playoff start. Between tomorrow and his last playoff start, there will be a 3,290-day break between his last playoff start and tomorrow. Jeez. That is the second longest in NFL history, only behind Drew Bledsoe, 4,382 days from 1987 to 1999. His last playoff start for Mr. Flacco was January 10th, 2015.
It's a good stat.
Bledsoe, 87 to 99.
That has to be
that
97.
doesn't make sense.
Maybe
no, it wasn't that long.
Bledsoe was
Bledsoe.
In 87. Bledsoe wasn't even in the league in 87.
No.
Maybe I'll double check that, but I know it's the second longest.
97.
Yeah, it had to be 97.
Yeah, but that wouldn't
it's a
be.
good stat. You screwed that part up. It's a little weird that you're calling him Mr. Flacco.
Mr. Flacco. He's earned my respect.
I know.
The utmost respect.
Have you guys
Mr.
seen the
Flacco.
Tim Misny billboard?
Yes.
Yes.
We did a story on it yesterday
Flacco
at
makes
5
him
o'clock
pay.
on Channel 3. He had a sweatshirt that he had made. It's one of one. It said Flacco fans since 2023. I thought it was great.
Mr.
Really,
Flacco.
really well done.
Mr. Flacco. Okay, second. Let's start with the highs and lows of Joe, though, in this offense. So since he's taken over for the Browns are averaging 5.8 yards per play. Now, before that, they were averaging 5.1 with Deshaun Watson, 4.2 with PJ, and 3.5 with DTR. Yeah. So their play, we talk about it, looks more explosive. They've been more efficient. In the most simplest term, they average almost an entire yard more per play with Flacco than they had with any quarterback previously. But here's the stat with Flacco that translates to this game specifically tomorrow. On the season, Cleveland finished the year with the 29th third down offense in football. They only converted 31.6 of their third down conversions. Now with Flacco, you would think they'd be better, but they were only slightly better, 33.8%. That would have ranked 28th. So one spot better with Flacco than they were in totality with Flacco, Deshaun, PJ, DTR, and that includes Jeff Driscoll. Houston, on the other hand, has the 5th-ranked third down defense. They only allow conversions on 35.7% of third downs. When they matched up in the first matchup, despite the fact that Cleveland destroyed Houston, they're only 6 for 6 on third down. They did go for it on a couple fourth downs because obviously Dustin Hopkins and Corey Bojorquez got hurt. But how the Browns do on third down, which has not been great this season against how Houston defends third down, another key matchup to watch come Saturday.
I think the thing that jumps out to me at that is I'm surprised how low that percentage is with Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
Now, maybe the sample size is small because I can think of a lot of drives where they never got to third down. So maybe they had fewer third down opportunities, but still their conversion rate is much lower than I would have expected.
That was a surprise stat.
Too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moving on to C.J. Stroud. Some of these we have talked about, but once again, just want to reemphasize. So the difference between Stroud and Case Keenum, and this is why we can talk about anything we want, but the difference in that Week 16 matchup first tomorrow is night and day. With Stroud, the Texans averaged 5.6 yards per play, just 0.2 yards lower than what Flacco averaged. In 155 plays without Stroud this year, they averaged 3.9. Wow. That was dead last in the NFL. So almost 2 yards different per play when Stroud's under center versus Case Keenum, Davis Mills, anyone else. Jeez. This season, Stroud, since the Super Bowl era, averaged 8.2 yards per attempt. That's the 3rd highest for any rookie. The only 2 higher, Ben Roethlisberger and Deshaun Watson. Shout out to Sean. On the flip side, he had a 1% interception rate, the 2nd lowest of any rookie in the quarterback era. So he pushes the ball downfield, doesn't turn the ball over. Beyond impressive what he's done. On the flip side, here's where it helps the Browns. We've talked about this a little bit. According to ESPN's QBR against zone coverage this year, number 1 rated quarterback in terms of QBR against zone coverage, 73.9. However, he's only 27th against man coverage. That drops down to 38.8. And the Browns, as we know, run cover 1, man 1, whatever you want to call it, 39% of the time, which is the 3rd most in the NFL. Denzel Ward's their best man cover corner. We'll see if he plays. It's trending in the right direction. And as Bull mentioned earlier, this is from Cleve TA, who, if you don't follow Cleve TA on Twitter, you should. Guy's a genius. But first-time playoff quarterbacks versus non-first-time playoff quarterbacks since 2002 are 17-36 straight up. Stroud's weaknesses is when he gets pressured. He goes from being one of the best quarterbacks in football to not one of the best in terms of being pressured by PFF grades. It's the 6th biggest drop-off from any quarterback.
Mike,
so get
Jay
pressure.
I was going to ask him, can you dive into that?
Yeah, where does he actually rank? Not in the biggest drop-off.
Yeah,
because Jay made a good point. He's got a high bar that he's starting at.
Yeah, so where does he fit in on his under pressure QBR?
So in the clean pocket grade, he is the 3rd rated PFF quarterback.
I would expect that, but where is he in the pressure?
He's 23rd. So it drops off. It's not a giant drop-off,
yeah, but it's not good, but it's not 32nd. I mean, it's not like when you say 6th biggest differential, when you set a high bar for yourself in one category, you would expect there to be a huge gap in your floor.
My point is, if you're asking if I could place the 3rd quarterback or the 23rd, give me the 23rd all day.
Oh,
so, yeah,
listen,
you definitely want to get
Where's
pressure on
Flacco
CJ.
in those rankings? Do we know?
He actually doesn't qualify. Hasn't thrown enough passes.
Doesn't have
to be
enough throws.
in the total. But I can tell you his PFF grade under pressure versus not if you want.
Listen,
Give me 1 sec to pull it up.
He's still 12 years old. I'm not going to keep talking about somebody who's
He's got a
13.
library card, doesn't he?
This
got it?
This is crazy. I know C.J. Stroud is good, but good gracious, we got to go through his stat book. Like, I'm with Bull. Who have you played? Like, I didn't even know it. I'm just figuring it out.
Jay mentioned they had the 30th strength of schedule.
Right.
But C.J. Stroud didn't play against the Browns, which is one of the best teams they played.
Yeah, but I don't know how that factors into it. I mean, there's still 21 other players that played against the Browns.
No, but my point is, I said it was he played the worst schedule. Well, you're saying it's 30th, so there's 2 teams that are worse.
Yeah.
However, he missed one of the best teams they played.
Yeah.
So
I
he
know.
personally, I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think the reason I jumped at what you said was it was the worst schedule in NFL history.
Well, that was.
So I was like, man, I haven't seen that one. That was hyperbole. That was Vinny. You put the hat on Vinny, and you're going to get some of that. What do you want?
Flacco's grades, by the way, he has a 73.4 PFF grade in a clean pocket, a 68.4 grade under pressure.
So not much of a
very
difference.
And you know what that is?
Off.
That's the mark of a veteran.
Yeah.
Against the mark of a rookie.
Right.
You would expect those numbers to have a huge gap for rookies. You would expect a veteran who's seen all of this for that. The numbers are very, very close. Joe might have the smallest disparity between his ceiling and floor.
I was going to say, I can't remember one being
I
that
can't
close.
either. I mean, that's almost identical.
That 68 grade under pressure, I bet you is top 10. Right, Mike?
Oh, it has to be.
Yeah, well, once again, he's not qualified among
But you
the
can
guys.
look at
But
those
if you
that
look
are
at the grade,
qualified.
it would be up. I can't count in my head and do that, but it's near the top.
Yeah,
It's definitely near
okay.
the top.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Number 4. This was the one that came as a super chat on Monday that I wanted to save for today. So shout out to Dominic for sending the super chat in. But
you said that.
guys, Kevin Stefanski's 10-0 against the AFC South in his career. He swept the division in 2020. He swept the division in 2023. He's 4-0 against the Texans, and he's played them every year in his career as a head coach.
That's funny.
He played in 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. He's 2-0 at NRG Stadium, where the game will be played tomorrow. The aggregate score, you add all 4 scores combined, 104-64. The average margin of victory, 10 points. Only one of them was even remotely close, and that aggregate score looks way better because the Browns took their foot off the gas. It was 36-7. They let Houston score 2 garbage time touchdowns. But he's 10-0 and 4-0 against the Texans.
And if you take his games against the AFC South out of his career record, he's probably under 500.
Yeah,
I don't think he's yet over 10 games over 500.
No, he's 37 and 30.
Wait, the aggregate score? That doesn't make any sense.
If you combine all 4 scores.
Oh, just against the
aggregate.
Texans. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say,
Just in those games, in the 4 games.
4 games versus
my bad. I would say, listen, just like I'm downplaying CJ's statistics a little bit because of who he's played against, I think that those stats to me aren't as impressive as they sound because until this year, the AFC South has been trash.
Horrible.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Texans have been trash since Kevin Stefanski's been in the league, except for, I think, his first season, Deshaun Watson was still at Houston, but they were bad in that year. Even though he played well, they were a bad team. So, to me, those stats don't mean much. Maybe the one argument, I don't know what you guys think, is you could say there's something to be said for the fact that many of these Texans players have never beaten the Browns.
Yeah,
a lot
perhaps.
of their guys.
Yeah, it's
don't know
odd
if
to me that they've played 4 straight years. That almost never happens.
I'm trying to wrap my head around
I can't
that.
remember the last time that's
It's going to be
happened.
5 games against a non-divisional opponent in 4 years.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's
Well,
crazy.
It's just an oddity.
They've both been really bad, so maybe outside of 2020.
I mean, 2020, the Browns made the playoffs. They played them the next year. I think the one thing, I agree with you 100%,
Yeah.
Bull. Someone once said wisely to me, when you show trends that go back more than 4 years, they're completely meaningless because history isn't playing Saturday. And so, I mean, even the Browns' history against the Steelers, when they show that, but it doesn't really matter. When you go past 2 or 3 or 4 years, none of those guys are still around. None of the coaches are still around.
I mean, this is a way better Texans team than any team they've played in the last 4 years. So
I would definitely
without
agree with
a doubt.
that.
All right, 2 more, guys, real quick. We talked about Amari Cooper. We talked about his heroic performance against the Texans the first time. We know he had 265 yards. That's the most any receiver had in the NFL this season. His 94.9 PFF grade that game was the highest they gave to any receiver. But here's my favorite one. EPA, it's a simple analytic to show how much you added over expected to a game. He had a 23.2 EPA that game. No other player in the NFL, offense, defense, quarterback, kicker, any player in the NFL had an EPA single game over 20 this season. He was 3.5 points better in terms of EPA than any other player in the NFL had in any single game this season. Number 2 was DJ Moore, who had a 19.9 against Washington. He had 3 touchdowns, 230 yards in that game.
Yeah.
That was a 19.9. No other player eclipsed 20. Amari had a 23.2 EPA against Houston.
Yeah. That's another reason why you cannot expect him to approach that.
No, I don't think anybody is. But I think it's interesting that he caught passes against 8 different DBs. It was like they tried everything.
Tried everyone.
And nothing
They
worked.
were. You get out there and try it. I can't stop him either.
I didn't even know teams had 8 active DBs on the roster.
Well,
it's got to be all they have.
Cornerbacks. One was a line. I mean, he was unbelievable.
Great.
Unbelievable. And last one, we talked about the kicker concerns earlier. We talked about Riley Patterson filling in. Well, we went through his numbers, and just to make y'all feel a little bit better, if this does, in his career he's played Houston twice, 4 for 4, 3 for 3 on extra points. Career in domes, which is where this game's being played, 39 for 40, 25 at 26 on extra points.
Good.
And in the playoffs, also 2 games, he's 4 for 4, 3 of 3. So he's not Dustin Hopkins.
Impressive.
However, if that's the guy we have to rely on to replace our all-pro caliber kicker,
I mean, look at his.
it could be worse. That's all I'm saying.
For me, I feel
Those
like
numbers are great.
If the kick's 45 and under, I feel good he's going to make it. Anything more than 45, I'm not gonna be confident.
And
that's the line.
And
for
you
me.
should probably anything more than 45.
Let's go for it.
Probably being aggressive.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure one of the things that, and they do this every game, someone will chart his pregame kicks and report to Kevin Stefanski that beyond 45 yards, he was 7 of 9.
Yeah.
Beyond 50, he was 4 of 5. Beyond 55, he was 2 of 5. Whatever someone will chart that. Someone will hand it to Stefanski, and Stefanski will call plays during the game based on that information. Should we punt here? Should we try a long field goal? And because it's a dome, it's just great kicking conditions.
Sure.
That's great. Jason, we were having a conversation earlier this week where I wasn't aware that his numbers were as good as they were with Detroit. He missed 2 field goal tries. Bull was kind of theorizing that, and there's some data to back it up, that he was cut simply because he just didn't have a long leg. Do you have any intel on why he was let go by Detroit?
He only attempted 4 field goals over 39 yards this year.
Now, Detroit scores a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah,
a lot of touchdowns.
Really low number.
Yeah.
It is a low number. And
He was 3 for 4.
And perhaps, look, if you know that information, that he just doesn't have the big leg, then they were punting or going for it in those situations.
Right.
I do know Detroit's aggressive, and they go for it a lot.
That was my first thought.
And Dan Campbell probably more often than not just said, let's go. Let's go.
The bottom line is, I think for them, and they had another kicker there, and they said, hey, if we need a long field goal in the playoffs, we don't trust this guy to make it.
Yeah, they did it. Bull said they did an internal competition, and they were doing it for a number of weeks, and week after week after week, it was turning up not in his favor.
Yeah.
So they let him go.
Yeah.
Now, the last thing you want to be is, if you're Detroit, if our guy hits a big kick in a playoff game and they lose a game in the playoffs because their kicker missed, holy cow, that's a Cleveland type ending to a season.
I know all I know right now is if you tell me the Browns need a 48-yard field goal to win the game, if Dustin Hopkins is the kicker, I have zero concern. With this guy, I'm not sure.
Sure.
I have concern.
Yeah, it's 50-50.
We'll see. That's how I feel about it.
Hopefully it's 1 week. Hopefully Hopkins can be back next
Yeah.
week. This week being in the dome, and we'll see. But yeah, of course you're going to be concerned with any sort of kick.
Isn't it concerning though that they kind of ruled him out on Tuesday
Yes.
in terms of possibly next week?
He is kicking.
Yeah, I
practice
I
now.
tend to think I tend to think that maybe there's a chance next week.
Okay.
Yeah, Jimmy said the same thing. Jimmy said that obviously the chances improved just because of the time, but he said the same thing. He thought that if it does go another week, that he'll be out there.
I think Delpit and Hopkins.
He said the same for Delpit.
Yeah, you're playing in a cold weather city next week, no matter what happens.
Yes.
There's no. The only warm weather or a dome team that could still be in the playoffs with the Browns is Miami, and the Browns can't play Miami next
Yeah, and when you're talking cold,
or can play Miami, but
the Kansas City game this weekend. Someone on the Weather Channel, and maybe it's changed since, but I saw on the Weather Channel Wednesday.
8 degrees, wasn't it?
And they said it has the potential to be the coldest NFL game ever.
Wow.
Now that's cold.
That's a statement.
That is a statement. They said if you look at some of the data and the wind chill and everything else, it could end up being the coldest NFL game ever. I heard -40 wind chill factors for areas today.
It's going to be crazy because you got that game, and then the Pittsburgh at Buffalo game is supposed to be a blizzard.
Yesterday, someone told me that there's a possibility that game gets played.
Apparently, that was bogus. That was
okay,
some clown.
good.
I texted you guys a tweet I saw from some sports talk host.
Someone told me, said they asked me, "Have you heard that game's going to be played in Cleveland?" I said, "I haven't heard a whisper."
Probably saw that tweet too.
We had 3 people. I'll never forget in my life. We had 3 people my junior year that was from Florida. They just quit. We was going to the turf field and it was like sleet and raining and snowing and it was like maybe 10 degrees.
Like quit the team?
Just turn their scholarships in. Like here, take this back.
I'm going to UCF.
We tried to get them like, yo, bro, you got to talk to your peoples. They said, nah, I ain't talking to moms. I'm on the first flight back to Florida.
Wow.
3 people.
That tops my when I was. I know we're gonna have Jonathan on in a minute. I covered Jonathan at Ohio State. He probably doesn't remember this.
Yeah.
I covered those teams, and Santonio Holmes, one of the receivers from Florida. He said, "Bro, I looked up in the dorm. I saw snow. I went back to bed."
Well, speaking of our next guest, Jonathan Wells, we're gonna bring him in 1 second.